Hello again, welcome to another edition of Arts and Ideas. I'm Sue Swinand, and I'm happy to be back at the Fitchburg Art Museum today, talking with Howard Johnson, artist who is currently showing here, and also with the director of the Fitchburg Art Museum, Nick Capasso. And Howard's been a strong force in the art community for many years in this area. And he's been consistently shown at the Howard Yuzerski Gallery in Boston, one of the best. And he's also been shown and collected at the Boston Museum of Fine Arts, the De Cordova Museum in Lincoln, Mass., and the Worcester Art Museum, just to name a few. He's got a long list of accomplishments. And Nick is a community leader and a hero of the local art community because he shows and supports local artists and also local art organizations. So thank you so much, both of you.
Well, thanks for having us.
I'm delighted. And I wanted to start off by asking how this show came about, Nick.
This show came about because I've always wanted to do this show. I've known Howard for almost 25 years, and I originally met him when I was a curator at the De Cordova Museum, where I was before I became the director here in Fitchburg. And we showed Howard's work on a couple of occasions in larger group shows, and we collected some work for the permanent collection, but I always wanted to do a Howard Johnson show.
And Nick was the curator of
Yes, I was the curator, yes. And so, now that I'm the director here, I get to do what I want.
And wear whatever hat you feel like.
And you know, truth be told, we have a small staff, and we have a lot of space to program, and our curator, Lisa Crossman, cannot do it all by herself. It's just too much. So occasionally I will chip in and organize some exhibitions so we can keep things vital and moving here. And so that's what I did in this case. And also, the Fitchburg Art Museum recently has dedicated a large part of our exhibition program to showing contemporary New England artists. So Howard's work fits perfectly.
He's one of the highlights of the area.
That's right, he's a very important New England artist.
Yeah.
And I finally had the opportunity to organize a show that I've wanted to organize all along. And one more thing, it was also exciting for me to do this and to work with Howard because this is all new work.
Yeah, I was going to say, how long have you been working on this show? It's so vast.
2013.
So it's a few years of concentrated effort.
Yeah, concentrated.
I forgot to mention the title of the show, which is
Fantastrophes.
Fantastrophes. So you can see you can kind of get the meaning of the show from the
fantasy and catastrophes.
Catastrophes, fantasies. Actually, the show is a very lively trip through the world of imagination. With wit and humor and horror and magic and myth. It's got it all. So.
And it's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's in some ways, that's almost the most important thing.
How many works are in the show? Do you know?
It's about 55, I'd say.
55 works?
55, yes.
And when you work on a series like this, are you totally working on just that series?
Yes.
So
There's
you
two
don't...
series here together. There's two series that's here together. One is the more depthy type of thing, you know, the more metaphysical work, philosophical work. and the others is the portrait series, the small portrait series. I mixed them together.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, I always liked the face. I want to see what I could do with a face, you
Yeah.
know? Rather than get involved, you know, do large scale, I started these small ones. And they went over pretty good. And I said, well, I'll just keep continuing doing them along with this, you know?
I like the small scale of these, Howard.
Yeah.
Don't they just look like jewels almost? The small quality of them is very intimate and jewel-like, especially because of the blue walls.
Right, we carefully, Howard came one day to the
Who came up with
museum.
that idea?
Well, we did it together, actually.
Really?
This is how it happened. Howard came with a bunch of work one day. We were working on the show and trying to figure out, you know, how many pieces we could fit in the gallery and what's all going to live well together. And Howard brought about, I don't know, 7 or 8 smaller pieces and larger pieces. We were holding them up against the wall, trying to figure it out. And it was one of us, or it was Lisa, I don't remember who it was, said, I wonder what these would look like against a colored background.
Yeah.
And Howard said, gee, I've always showed it against white walls. So we took a few drawings to another part of the museum where we happened to have a blue wall, not exactly this blue, but very similar. And we held the work up against the blue wall and it just popped.
They almost look like stained glass.
Exactly. It didn't change the colors, but the depth in the work both receded and projected. It was like, wow, why don't we do this? And Howard agreed, and that's the reason we have the blue walls. And also it helps in a space that, you know, this is a fairly large space, and Howard's work is not huge. These are not giant paintings.
So the groupings.
Well, the groupings are important, but also to have that extra sense of pop really helps the work command the space.
Yes.
Because you don't want to exhibit artwork in a way where the space overpowers the work, or vice versa.
This is his
really
curatorial genius coming out.
Well, it's a long, hard experience.
Howard, let's take a closer look at some of the work, because I want to show the audience what you've been up to. So Howard, what's the title of this one?
Which one?
The one you want to talk about?
It's, what is it? Mirth.
Uh-huh. You know, and this one is called Wishcraft. Wishcraft. I couldn't help noticing that Howard combines pieces of words, disparate words, and makes new meanings out of them. And that's the same thing he does with his visual work, if you'll notice. You know, it hit me that you're taking little pieces of different kinds of figures and putting them together in new ways, which makes it really fantastical. If that's a word.
Well, the title comes first.
The title comes first?
Yeah, I can't think about anything. It's very automatic. I'll be doing something, I'm just walking around, something will flash into my head, and I said, better write that one down. It's going to be the next idea. Then I work around the title.
So you have the idea before you begin?
I have the title before I begin,
title.
But I don't totally have the idea.
And where do the ideas come from?
They're very subconscious, you know, alpha states and things like that. You know, they're flashes, they're visions. They don't, they only last a second, or I can't, and I got to write them down. I got to repeat them a few hundred times so I can remember them and don't forget them by the time I get home. And I write them down. Well, I write them down on a page. I keep it in my computer. It's just called Ideas and Visions. When I run out of an idea,
visions. That's it. Well, you know, you've been called a visionary artist.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you saw the whole painting in your head.
No. I have a rough idea of the whole idea, but it will never come out the way I originally conceived it.
So you just get going?
I just get going, and most of the time it's better than the original concept. It completely changes around.
I'm totally with you on that. I think you have to discover the image. You have to discover it. And he has a quote on his website which says something about work it. And who was that, Lamb? Or anyway, it says work it until it becomes what you want, and keep at it. And I think you're working like that, aren't you not?
Yes.
Yeah. So you just so you're able to change things.
I think in work it wasn't that.
Wilfredo Lam?
No, it wasn't Wilfredo Lam. I think it was David Lynch. Work it and work it until it looks good to you, then it'll look good to everybody else.
Because then it's true.
Yeah.
When it looks good to you, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting. I like that quote a lot.
Yeah, that's Lynch.
Yeah. So what kinds of things do you read to get your ideas?
Oh, I run things in the background all the time. I listen to there's a station out there, it's pretty damn close, almost as good as Art Bell or George Norrie. It's called Clyde Lewis, Ground Zero. I run that in the background. It's all conspiracy theory. It's very apocalyptical because he's religious. It's all based on revelation. So I get that conspiracy theory, things that are going on. It's yeah. I run that in the background all the time. It's Clyde Lewis Ground Zero. You can get the app for your iPhone, or you can just stream it directly from your computer. It's free. It's almost as good as it's very professional. Usually you watch those UFO shows and UFO sites, you listen to them on the radio, they seem like they're horrible. If they're filmed in somebody's garage or something like that, you know? I mean, and you get somebody that just doesn't know how to doing these things. But this one is professional, and it's out of Portland, Oregon, and you'll like him. He's constantly doing a little bit, 3-4 hours at a time. I run him in the background, and then I just start thinking of things, and then I don't read anymore because we got the internet. I'm more interested in information.
So then it comes into your mind and it just kind of moves around in your head, and then it starts coming out in different ways.
Yeah, usually at night. I'm sleeping, and the gate opens at night, you know, before I'm asleep.
Very interesting.
I just start thinking of very strange things.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you know, I think your work has a lot of dark things as well. As it's humorous, but it's also dark.
Well, I go for that.
Nick, you were talking a little bit about the aesthetics of the strange.
Right. So while Howard is a visionary with his own unique, distinct visions, he's also plugged into a very long art historical tradition. It's not just an art historical tradition, it's a cultural tradition of...
in every culture.
In every culture. And what Howard's got going on, you know, in almost all of these drawings is little creatures. They're they're monsters. And what's important, monsters are really important, and people don't think about this, but you find monsters in every culture, every religion, every philosophy since the beginning of recorded history.
We create them.
We create them for a specific purpose. So monsters are things that are in between. They're in between human and animal, they're in between good and evil, they're in between the human and the divine.
And they're in the unknown, the dark area.
And that's what monsters are for. They're to help us understand the in-between places that our rational brains won't go to.
And that are invisible. So work is revealing the invisible to us.
That's right.
Our experiences
and this is why,
that are not...
Right, and this is why I think there are two reasons why Howard is a great artist. First of all, it's his technical ability. This man can draw, and this man has a great color sense. And with that, he can create beautiful, evocative images. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is that what artists are supposed to do is show the rest of us what we can't see and what we can't imagine. And Howard's really good at that.
He knows how to put his finger on those places.
That's right, and you do that too.
I can line up with him because it's all from your head and imagination.
Right, it's about imagination.
Yeah.
The lizard is very important. It's the beginning of the dragon, which it doesn't come from dinosaurs. It came from probably the reptilian race that was probably here in pre-Adamic times. Before there was man, the world was ruled by reptiles. And this is where we got the concept of Satan and the Gosh.
Can I just
and
mention...
we still have our reptilian brain. We're still part reptile.
That's really interesting.
And that's true.
The Gosh is in the Bible. That's the Jewish snake, the Jewish serpent. Which wasn't a serpent, it's a lizard. In Sumerian times, you know, pre-Christian times, the great king was followed around by a lizard. He was a Tiamat.
One of the central Greco-Roman myths is Apollo slaying the python.
Yeah, all these big monster animals that are half human. And, you know, I wanted to ask you too, you had a series that I loved that was on your web page, which is called The Eighth Ring.
Yes.
And, you know, just to know where his sources are very diverse, that's really, tell us about The Eighth Ring a little bit.
Oh, Eighth Ring is from Dante's Inferno.
So the eighth ring of Dante, which
Yeah, it's
was
Dante's Inferno.
a
It's basically,
deep punishment level.
yeah, it's one of the punishment levels. It's where they put simonius, people who use religion for false pretenses. Simonius, you know, Simon Magnus, and also those who crooked politicians. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's very
So
representative.
you
of
can
life
see
in
those
general.
images online and look at his eighth ring web page, because it's really, I love those drawings. So those are all black and white. And then you moved into color just like a few years ago?
Yeah. I had to, because we had about the gallery, and I says, well, I'm talking to my gallery owner, and I says, these aren't going. He says, nobody's even looking at them. So I says, well, I'm going to try some color.
They missed it. I mean, I love those black and whites.
Yeah.
I see this one is called Mother.
And Mother.
Mother Earth.
Yeah.
Other. Again, it's that combination of words that's so playful. And I'm really curious about your materials and how you put these things together.
Well, they're basically collage. I just I got various magazines, you know, chemistry magazines, you know, I collect things like pages from exploitation movies. Let's see, mathematical formulas. I love using mathematical.
And what that does is it gives you a rich undersurface that has lots of complexity.
Yeah, and it also, it's kind of thematic too, because, you know, the woods are spontaneous, they be together, it's almost like exquisite corpse. And then you've got the, and it also serves another purpose. I don't like empty spaces, so it fills the space up between the space.
We're talking about the empty space being that horror vacuum like they had in where everything, nature abhors a vacuum. And so these are very organic and have that growing feeling of filling in every space.
A lot of UFOlogy in these too.
Yeah.
Basically a lot of Grail mythology, because things are vessels in there. There's a lot of
Yeah.
vessel-shaped objects.
So you glue the pages of your different materials onto what?
That's ampersand staged board.
Okay.
Which is board you buy. It's fairly pricey, you know. And
So then instead of having them as paper collages, he's adhering them to a substrata that's rigid. And then what?
then I start working and I draw it in. I pretty much draw it in with pencil until I get the idea right. Hell of a lot of erasing. You can see that.
So that's a means of dividing the space until the shapes and forms satisfy you.
Come together. Then I work the color, and then I finish it and got a finished product. But I mean, it's a real process to get the shapes right and everything like that, you know.
And then do you varnish it then?
Do I?
Varnish?
Yeah, I put three coats of heavy matte acrylic on it, and it soaks through the paper. It soaks on that and bonds completely. So it's almost like a plastic surface on there. You could almost wash it with no damage.
Sure, sure.
It's permanent. I've never had
It
any.
makes a beautiful, rich text, like a kind of a matte, but it has depth to it, which I like. I think you also are a person who likes dry, abrasive media, you know, because your color is what? Isn't that a crayon?
No, that's the crayon.
So the dry abrasive media scratches on the surface and blends through repeated strokes. And the same with your black line and all that charcoal work you did was that dry abrasive media.
Yeah, well, you know, I always wanted to be a painter, but I'm a lousy painter, so I've managed to produce the same effect using these type of things, you know.
You know, Howard has won the drawing fellowship in Massachusetts.
A couple of times. Yeah.
Couple times, and that's quite a significant, the Mass Council,
Yeah.
that's quite a feather in your cap. But I remember some of those early series, and you've been rolling and rolling, and I wanted to, are there any others you want to show us?
Yeah, I would look at this one.
You know, I also wanted to remember to mention your wife, Miriam, because she is just one of my favorite people, and she told me you were a very hard worker. So what's your work day like?
The work day starts in the morning. It can start at 4:30 in the morning.
4:30 in the morning.
You can start at 4:30, and you know, I get bored in the evenings. I just go to bed and I get up early. I try Netflix. I try a few other things. I try television. I just say this isn't anything any good.
Yeah. So you enjoy working during early morning
I used
hours?
to be a night person. On
Yeah.
my club days, I used to stay up all night, but I'm not 21 anymore, so I'm not I don't hit the clubs.
Well, I think since you married Miriam, she's gotten you on a more regular schedule.
Yeah. Oh yeah, well, you know, I had to work a full-time job at the time too, and I had to be up in the morning, and I had to go to work. I worked 3 to 11, so I had to be in the morning.
You worked for digital, right?
Yeah, Digital and Norton Company when it was Norton. Yeah.
And you had a degree from Worcester State in communications,
Communications, and since I dealt with optics and things like that, they do all their measurements and, you know, using optical aligners and things like that, digital, so of course, I applied for the job, I got it immediately, you know.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And that enabled you to keep your art career afloat in terms of financial?
Oh yeah, well yeah, they paid pretty good, you know. I became everything I hated, you know. It's just called sellout, but I had no problem with it.
Yeah.
I think we all eventually sold out, you know. I mean, I remember working for the military. I ended up making power seals for Westinghouse. I made warheads for the whatever they call it, for the Reagan Star Wars projects in the 90s. We worked on those projects. We made body armor for the military.
Amazing.
Yeah, we made chips that went into surveillance systems and things like that, all those awful things you don't like to hear about. I became everything, coming out of the 60s, I became everything I hated, you know.
Well, you were a good protester in the 60s.
Well,
I know
you know,
that.
also, you know, I didn't have any conscience about it, because when I really got started my career, it was the 70s, and the punk era came in. And I says, here's something I can join, and I don't have to have any morality, I don't have any dogma, I don't have to have any conscience about it, because it's about total nihilism. I dropped to nihilism. People says, don't you feel bad about that type of stuff? I says, not really. I says, I did it, so what? Who cares?
So the punk era and pop culture, you really latched onto that as a way to express the time.
The time, yeah.
The time and what your vision of it was.
Well, I was in England at the time, and I saw the real punk movement. This stuff that was around here, Ramones and all that, was just a fad. The real stuff, I saw the Damned in the pub, I've seen the Rosillos, I've seen the Skids, I've seen all the bad boy bands over there.
This guy's been around.
Stiff Little Fingers and all those in the pubs in London in the 70s, and it wasn't pretty and fashionable, it was ugly, you know, messy, you know, fist fighting, I mean, knifings, people throwing buckets of spit and beer and feces at each other on the dance floor. I mean, it was the real thing. It was a real punk.
I missed it.
Yeah, well, I walked into it by accident.
Now this one kind of looks like a face to me. What is the title of it?
Psilocybin.
Uh-huh. And is it a figure?
Yeah, it's a figure. It's an alien face.
An alien face? And tell us a little bit more.
Well, basically, supposedly under the hallucinatory drugs of Yage and psilocybin and that like that, you're usually greeted by an alien being. And that's probably one of the earlier creation images that came out of that, those hallucinations. It has to do with panspermia, where possibly the God seed that has seeded the civilization came from outer space. It traveled in meteorites and things like that, seeds from the psilocybin mushrooms and the Yage roots reached Earth.
So this psychedelic evidence was the mushroom.
Mushroom, yeah.
Okay, wow. There's a lot to see here. So you have this show running, Nick, till when?
September 30th.
September 30th. And you can see more of Howard's work at the Ozersky Gallery, and you really ought to make your trip up to the Fitchburg Art Museum. They got a few other terrific shows upstairs.
And if you want to meet Howard, Howard will be giving a gallery talk in this very space on Sunday, August 5th, which at the Fitchburg Art Museum is also going to be Worcester Day in honor of Howard, a Worcester artist.
Come one, come all.
The many other Worcester artists we're showing this summer. So if you're a resident of the city of Worcester, you and your guests come to the Fitchburg Art Museum for free, Sunday, August 5th, and at 3 o'clock, you get to meet Howard.
It'll be quite a talk, I'm sure. So I hope you get up to the museum this summer. It's great, and we thank you both very much.
Thank you.
And hope we see you again next time for another edition of Arts and Ideas.